Hi everybody, welcome to video 3. This week's topic is depression. I did a little bit of research and I found out that the US, roughly speaking, you're looking at 7% of the population worldwide are diagnosed with depression. This is about 121 million people. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot more people out there that suffer from depression that aren't documented. But that's just a thought. Um, Symptoms of depression include changes in appetite, in sleeping patterns, fatigue, anxiety, restlessness. Uh, you're looking at decreased interest in daily activities, in doing things that you actually like to do, and the ever popular suicidal thoughts is pretty bad. Uh, Depression can even cause you physical pain if it gets bad enough. I've never experienced this, but I do know it's documented. And so depression is probably one of the most widespread and, well, life-destroying diseases you can come across. And it is, I do consider it a disease. It is a mental disease. And the reason I say it is one of the most life-destroying is because a lot of people can't get over depression. Chronic depression it's really hard to deal with because it's your emotions and your brain fighting against each other, and it's really hard to even identify a single cause for depression in anybody. So it's really hard to deal with. Now, another one of the symptoms of depression is increased drug and alcohol use, and I actually believe that not only is this a symptom, it is a cause, and it ends up being a self-perpetuating cycle. To quote a movie, because I do that a lot, if you look at one of the Austin Powers movies, I couldn't tell you which one, the character Fat Bastard said, "I eat because I'm unhappy, and I'm unhappy because I eat." And that's it right there. That is the truth of it. It's, I'm depressed because I drink, and I drink because I'm depressed. I use drugs because I'm depressed. I'm unhappy because I use drugs, and I use drugs because I'm unhappy. It's a self-perpetuating cycle, and it doesn't hurt. So if that is how you deal with your depression, then I have to say, quit being dumb about it. I understand that it hurts. I really do. Like I've said before, I grew up with depression. It is part of who I am, and I will probably always have some depression in my life. But getting drunk doesn't do anything to alleviate that. A couple of drinks cheer you up, fine. Not, this isn't a constant thing. This is a quick fix, but it doesn't go away. If you get trashed because you're depressed, all you end up doing is blacking out and doing something stupid. You wake up in the morning with a hangover and you're still depressed. And it's the same thing with drugs, any kind of drugs. Now, I have smoked marijuana before. I probably will again. It's kind of and I don't see a problem with that. If you do, well, that's your choice. Don't yell at me. Anyway, I have noticed though that some of the worst depressions I've ever felt were actually during periods of time where I was constantly high. The longer I smoked, there were periods of time there where it was a month straight. maybe one day out of the whole month where I wasn't getting high, and I was severely depressed. And it was really, really bad. And then I stopped, and that depression went away. I cheered up, I started getting things done, and so on and so forth. My point is, it doesn't help. If you like to drink, there's nothing wrong with that. I do strongly recommend that if you're feeling depressed, don't drink. It's only going to make it worse. And this is the same when you're feeling, strong emotions. Alcohol tends to, excuse me. Alcohol tends to enhance strong emotions. If you're depressed and you start drinking, you're going to get even worse. If you're angry and you start drinking, you're probably going to end up in jail. Alcohol is an amplifier. If you're in a great mood and you start drinking, you're going to be in an awesome mood all night. This is not a guarantee. People react to alcohol differently, but it is an amplifier. I think everybody can agree on that. And drinking while you're in any kind of negative mood generally is not a good idea because it tends to get worse. But another one of the factors for depression that I think a lot of people tend to overlook is a lot of people that are chronically depressed are lonely people. They spend a lot of time in their own homes, and they don't go anywhere else. And I am a perfect example of this. 90% of my life has been spent in my bedroom. In whatever house I was living in, I didn't go out and hang out with friends. I didn't go out and try to make friends. And the more time you spend in your own company, it can be a problem. If you're lonely, most people don't even, I think a lot of people who feel lonely don't even realize that that's what they're feeling. And, keeping yourself hidden from the world because you're depressed only amplifies that depression, because the longer you stay on your own, the more you start to feel like, well, nobody cares about me because nobody's coming over to see me. Well, that's a two-way street. If you're not going to see any of your friends, if you're making no effort to be a friend, eventually people are going to stop making the effort themselves. And you start feeling like you're alone and like nobody cares because you're not giving yourself the opportunity to experience that. You're not calling your friends, you're not talking to your friends. How are you going to know how they feel when you're spending all your time locked up? And I'm speaking from personal experience. Alright, I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. I'm trying to explain to you that it doesn't work. You have to find ways to break out of your routine. Now, with the drugs and alcohol, that is incredibly difficult. I never considered myself addicted to alcohol or to marijuana because, to be perfectly honest, if it's not there, I don't think about it. If I don't have a bottle of liquor in my fridge, I don't care. Alcohol, I don't drink very much anyway, but I do understand addiction. I am addicted to tobacco, and before you fly off the handle and, it's not the same thing, it is the exact same thing. Alright, just because one is legal and others aren't does not mean that that addiction isn't the same thing. Tobacco is one of the most addictive substances on the planet. This has been proven. Not the most, one of the most. So before you start yelling at me that, shut up. Alright, it is still an addiction, whether you want to admit it or not. And I've tried to quit, and it's hard. That's what I'm getting at. I understand it's difficult. So if your coping mechanism is an addictive substance, whatever it is, alcohol, tobacco, weed, cocaine, whatever, that's not helping you out. As far as loneliness goes, being alone and keeping yourself alone, that's not going to help you either. You have to find a way to break out of it. Personal example for me, I came to college. I didn't come for a higher education. That's a benefit. I came to learn how to deal with people. And then I realized that just being in college is not helping me at all because I don't speak out in my classes or anything. And I'm still spending all of my time sitting in my dorm room alone. So I joined the Student Senate. And I have my first meeting later on today. And we'll see how it goes. And that's the kind of stuff you have to do. You know, if you find something, if you're spending all of your time alone, and that's the biggest thing I can say, if you're spending all of your time alone, it's almost impossible to deal with depression. You need a support group. I will probably continuously harp on the benefits of having a support group, because you know what? There's no negative effects to having people who care about you. No matter what you're dealing with, if you have friends and family that really care about you, you have a support group, and it is a lot easier to deal with, because if you're feeling really depressed and you go over to your friend and start talking to them and end up crying on their shoulder for 3 hours, you'll feel better. And not just because crying itself makes you feel better. Again, this is a proven thing, but I don't know any of the stats on it. Crying itself makes you feel better, but because you know that if somebody lets you sit there and cry on their shoulder for 3 hours, that they actually really care about you. So get out there. Find a group, find something to do. It's not always easy. But if you're not looking, you're never going to find it. So there's my monologue on depression. I understand how hard it can be, and all I'm trying to do is help you discover the tools so that you can begin to heal. And I really hope it helps.